Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Today I'm going to review a Timex, but I also want to talk about birth year watches. What do we think about birth year watches? I mean, it's not something I've ever spoken about on the channel before, but it is something I have been thinking about over the last while, and I'm still not quite sure where I stand on them, if one indeed does have to take a position about birth year watches. I suspect this is a relatively recent phenomenon. I mean, I could be wrong. Prithee, young knave, doth thou have one from the year of our Lord, 1604, for 'twas the year of my birth? But I suspect that birth year watches have only really become a thing over the last 4 or 5 years or so. There are even companies now specialising in selling birth year watches. I also suspect it's probably just an excuse for people to buy just one more watch. Not that I have a problem with that. I also suspect it's an excuse for lots of new dads to buy something for themselves on the pretext that they're buying it for their offspring. But darling, it's not for me, it's for little Johnny. But regardless, the more watches, the merrier in my book. Now, I have made no secret of my own personal vintage on the channel. I wear this t-shirt with pride a lot of the time, and if you hadn't worked it out, you're certainly going to work it out today. I was born in 1975. I am 45 years of age, and I've often thought that birth year watches, it depends on your perspective. If you are looking up the hill towards the halfway point, birth year watches are quite appealing. If you're heading down the other side like I am, birth year watches just remind you how old you are. Now, looking at my channel demographics, it looks like you lot are split exactly down the middle. Half of you looking up, half of you looking down. So you tell me, please leave me a comment. Let me know how you feel about birth year watches. Do you have one? Are you looking to buy one? Or do you think it is all just a bit of a fad? Now, I've only just dipped my toe into the murky waters of vintage watches recently, and I'm not quite at the stage where I'm ready to start searching for a birth year watch for myself. However, I have no problem with retro reissues, and a rather excited Mr. X tipped me onto this Timex 1975 quartz retro reissue, so I thought that would do for now anyway. Is it even a birth year watch? Does that really matter? Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. Alright, let's get into the box then. Now, if you are a regular on the channel, you'll know that this is the 6th Timex retro reissue that I have reviewed. First of all, I looked at the Q, then the M79, then the Milano, then I did an old versus new Marlin comparison, and then let's not talk about the Pac-Man. So I've got a fair idea of what was in the box when I ordered it. I knew what I was getting into, and I'm sure that you probably know what you're getting into if you're picking up one of these Timexes or you are interested in picking one of these Timex up. Absolutely striking looking watch, but not a lot for your money, and a fairly significant amount of money. I paid 299 Aussie dollars for this bad boy. I think they're only 169 USD. I'm not quite sure why the Aussies are getting nailed so hard there, but anyway, 299 AUD. I bought it from an authorised dealer, but that's the price from Timex. It is a very, very handsome looking watch though. Let's get a zoom in on it. So not particularly cheap then, but I must say it is a very, very striking looking little watch, this one. I'll put in some macro here. You can see the lovely champagne sunburst coloured dial and fabulous looking indices, applied gold indices like little bricks, adding a bit of depth combined with a domed acrylic crystal. Yeah, plenty of light play from this little watch, that for sure. But how little is it? Well, 37.4 mil in diameter, very short 42 mil lug to lug, but it's got a bit of chunk to it despite the fact that it's a quartz. I think really because of that kind of cushion case here and that domed acrylic crystal. 13.4 millimeters thick, 20 millimeter lug width, and check that strap. I will talk about it later on. Under any other circumstances this would be going in the bin, but I just couldn't think of a better strap to go with a gold 70 style watch. On the supply strap it weighs in at 53 grams. So we do have a stainless steel case. Gold IP coated, you're not getting any real gold here, it is gold tone. Little push-pull crown, unsigned crown, and 50 meters of water resistance. You can see that domed acrylic crystal, so it will scuff and scratch, but Polywatch is your friend in this circumstance. And a screw-on, literally a screw-on stainless steel case back with a battery hatch. You don't see many of them these days apart from on swatches, and I wonder why you don't see many of them. Such a convenient feature. I guess you're only going to be swapping the battery out every couple of years anyway, but nice that they have added that little touch. Nice also that they have added quick release spring bars to that strap. So let's look at the strap then. It claims to be top grain cowhide, and yeah, like I said, normally this thing would be straight in the bin, but I think it's just fabulous. What is it, kind of full crop grain? I'm not even sure, but super 70s, even down to the shape of the buckle there. Again, gold IP coated buckle and tang. And the pièce de résistance, the squared off end. I will obviously show you how it looks on wrist later. But for now, let's get back to some macro and have a look at the dial and the hands, because the dial and the hands here, achingly retro, definitely the star of the show. Like I said, it's not about specs or value today. It really is whether you're into this look or not. Now, being a faithful copy of a watch from 1975, oddly enough, they have kept that retro look. We've got a double width baton at 12, double width batons at 6 and 9 as well, and single width batons everywhere else, looking like little blocks of gold set atop that champagne dial. Printed minute track around the outer edge, and just the Timex logo underneath that baton at 12 with the Timex Q. This is part of this evolving retro Q range, and quartz in big bold letters above the index at 6 o'clock. Now, originally this watch was an auto, it wasn't a quartz. I don't know why Timex aren't reissuing more of these as automatics, but there you go. Only other feature on the dial is the day-date complication there at the 3. Now, if this was just a date, I would probably be more upset than I am, but I tend to be more forgiving of day-date complications. I think they tend to balance out the imbalance, if you see what I mean, and they add an extra degree of practicality. I can forgive this one, even if it is kind of white and fairly basically framed, just with a printed frame around it. I must say though, I think the watch would look a couple of notches further up the ladder, a couple of points further up the scale if it didn't have that day-date complication. But hey, that's what they've done, so we just have to live with it. Handset, very simple, gold tone with a black center ridge running all the way the length of the minute hand and the hour hand, and it's just a very simple needle second hand, which does actually a reasonable job of hitting the markers. No loom here at all, so no loom video today at all. And that's it on wrist. I have got a 7-inch wrist for your reference. On paper, this watch seems like it's going to be small, but it doesn't actually wear small. I think the 20mm lug width, the kind of cushion case, obviously helps with that. Plus that thickness, it has got far more presence than you might expect from a watch at under 38mm with that super compact lug to lug. Overhead legibility, well, gold on gold, you wouldn't really expect much. And I guess it is going to be angle dependent. You can see some of that light play here. It looks fantastic. Those little gold blocks glinting. Yeah, it is going to be angle dependent, but it's a fairly sizable dial. It's not too bad overall. Outside in natural light, you can see how beautifully that champagne dial does indeed play with the light, slightly overpowering in some aspects, especially when combined with that gold IP case. You can also see the lovely light play you get from that domed acrylic crystal and the shiny reflection coming off the patent leather strap. Again, you can see all of this when I put it on wrist as well. Looking down the wrist, very compact lug to lug, 42mm as noted. Really, anybody is going to be able to cope with this one. A gentleman with smaller wrists, ladies, no problem at all because of that super short lug to lug. Interesting to note though, 20mm lug width, so you can bulk it up with a slightly beefier strap if you want to. So, moans and niggles, what am I going to complain about? Well, most of my complaints should be fairly self-evident by this point in the video, starting with the value or lack thereof, especially at the Australian list price. I'm not quite sure why we get nailed so hard for this one, $299. Really, if it's 170 USD. It should be about 230 Aussie dollars, not 299, but there you go. And why is it quartz? Why doesn't it feature a Miyota 9000 day date? That would be an altogether different proposition for most people, I suspect. Even if it was 250 USD, even 400 Aussie dollars, I think that would still be a much more appealing watch than it is going to be for many. Timex seem to want to maximise their profits by offering minimal specs with cheap quartz movements on this Q range, so I guess that's just what we have to deal with. And this one has a rather unusual name. It is known as the Timex 1975 reissue. It's also known as the Timex Marmont, which reminds me of this guy, the Timex Marmot. Or perhaps that is just me. And it is certainly not going to have mass appeal. Gold tones, that cheesy strap, yeah, definitely kitsch. They refer to it as louche, the louche styling of the 1970s. Basically they're saying, yeah, it was tasteless back then and we are copying that tasteless styling. However, I think it works overall. That kind of kitsch retro thing, I think this one nails it on the head far, far better than any of the other Timex retro reissues that I have reviewed up until this point. And then there is the final point. Is it a birth year watch? Well, no, it's not really a birth year watch, is it? It's a birth year design, but the whole point of a birth year watch is that it came into being the same year that you did, and this one is a 2021 as opposed to a 1975. Is that going to be enough for some people? Well, I suspect it's going to be enough for me at the moment. This one is going to be a keeper for me. It goes with some of my more 70s louche attire that I wear occasionally. I can see it slotting in as part of my collection long term. Well, that's what I always say though, isn't it? Let's see how long this one lasts. So there you have it, well done for making it here. If you're into retro Timex reissues, you're not sure, I have reviewed a few of them, check out the queue at your own risk. Also check out my new V Old Marlin video. Thanks for watching, I'll see you all soon.